Here we go, College Football Payoff Podcast. We are in week 11, so that's episode 12 of the season.
Episode 49 total.
Ooh, next week's a milestone. We're going to have to go big next week.
We are going to have to go big next week.
I'm Dan. That's Big Country. Back again this week. I've had a little rough spell going here, but still positive. I went 1-2 last week, 21-17 overall, 55%. Big Country keeps his winning ways. He's 2-1, 19-14 overall, 57% on the season. So that brings our podcast total to a 40-31 record, which is 56%, right?
Sharp.
Very
Not too
good.
many podcasts just tell you what the record is right off the bat. So
we got to let them know.
I don't care if you play or fade. Just listen.
And it's, you take the past few weeks as I've had kind of a little bit of a slump, so you could start fading my picks a little bit maybe, but I'd say I'd roll with yours. My brother didn't give me his picks this week, so I can't give him a shout out like I promised I would, but that's on him. He's got to do better. Do better, William. All right. Quick recap of last week, just around college football. You had the Tennessee-Georgia game, which I think that went, I don't know, I didn't think Tennessee really stood a shot against Georgia.
I'd like to believe they did, but just seeing how much public money was on Tennessee, it just wasn't going to happen.
Yep. And then the other big one was Bama losing to LSU. Brian Kelly, as much as I make fun, don't really like him, he does have some balls. That 2-point conversion play at the end.
That was the right call.
It was the right call, but geez, the play call, I'm saying, to throw a pass.
That was tight to a freshman too.
Yes. That was a hell of a game. Jinx.
Yeah, I figured Georgia was going to cover pretty easy last week. I got a buddy who works behind the sports book down at Barstool Sportsbook in Washington. He told me he did not take a single bet on Georgia all week until right before kickoff. So he figured that Georgia was going to cover pretty easily. And even with the ass kicking that Georgia gave Tennessee still had that opportunity to backdoor cover at the end there.
Yeah.
So just that's how the dice fall or how the dice roll in this gambling world that we live in.
That's true. And then you're actually a Heisman. Your Heisman card that you have going for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Stroud and Hooker both had bad weeks last week, but when they it's set up for Blake Corum to steal it from Michigan if he wants it, especially if he goes off against Ohio State later this year, when the national eyes are on him. But ESPN always has these Twitter polls of who you think is going to win the Heisman, and they took Caleb Williams off this week and replaced him with Bo Nix. So I don't know. The Heisman just goes to whatever narrative building network wants to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, ESPN just will highlight whoever they want. They're not going to give it to Williams this year.
I was going off of the fact that Stroud had a terrible game. Well, it was tough because it was 40-mile-an-hour winds, but he still looked bad. And then Hendon Hooker too. So
then I also saw a stat comparison today between Drake May and C.J. Stroud, and after looking at the stat comparison, there's absolutely no reason that Drake May shouldn't be considered for the Heisman this year. I mean, he is playing out of his mind. He's got, I think, a couple more touchdown passes than Stroud, and then he's got 5 rushing touchdowns also.
Yeah.
Dude's pretty solid. I mean, he just plays for a terrible team. Actually, I think they're 8-1, but they're still fraudulent. They're in the ACC.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's basically headlines going in. Now we're getting down, like we said, we're getting closer and closer to the conference championship games. So, and especially up north here, you're starting to get the weather games, which the weather affected my Ohio State pick last week, even though Ohio State, they didn't look good at all against Northwestern. Northwestern's one of the worst teams in the country. They looked bad, but if you were watching that game pregame, the wind was blowing kicks back. The kicks were going backwards. It was very tough to throw. And if I would have known that going in, the under was a lock, I wouldn't have taken the points with Ohio State. And mainly because now they're keying on the running game, and Stroud can't run. He's scared to run. So that was a loss for me. I also lost the Illinois minus 16.5 against Michigan State. I completely was on the wrong side of that. But they'd get help from Michigan, minus 25.5. Won that game. What were your picks last week?
Yeah, my went 2-1. My 2 wins were the USC Cal over 60.5. That one was really never a doubt, and then the UCLA minus 10.5. That looked like a cover pretty much all the way through, but they just couldn't get Arizona State off their backs. Still got it done in the end. Then the loss came with Oregon Colorado over 61.5. I had they ended at 59. That's like the 2 out of the last 3 weeks we've lost overs on less than a field goal, so that's tough, but it's a new week.
You're trending up right there. All right. Well, let's go then. You got 3 this week. I got 3 this week.
I'm ready to go.
You want to start or do you want me to?
I'll start off this week.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm first pick of the week, SEC game, very situational play. These are 2 teams that are down already this week, and or 2 teams are down in their schedules. And man, I wish we would recorded this pod earlier today because we already lost 2 points of line value. We're looking at the LSU Arkansas game. Purely a letdown spot for LSU. Coming off the huge win. Everybody saw them win last week in overtime on the 2-point conversion. This is a perfect situation from a betting perspective for them to start slow, for them to come out slow and just not move the ball up and down the field like they have the last few games. And I think that'll benefit us pretty well because this is a pretty big rivalry game. The LSU Arkansas have been rivals for a while, even though it's more of those under the radar SEC rivalries. They do hate each other, so to me this seems like a pretty slow game all around. On top of that, Arkansas is coming off just a terrible loss last week. They went into Liberty, got their ass beat, or Liberty came to Arkansas and left with the win. I mean, this is a Liberty team without Malik Willis from last year. I mean, 21-19, that's just unacceptable. Watched KJ Jefferson last week. He looked like he wasn't even there. Like he didn't even care what was going on. I mean, he kind of seemed not invested in the game whatsoever. I don't know if he was looking ahead or if he was just underestimating what Liberty had on their defense, but I mean, just did not look like a great game out of him. And on top of that, Arkansas's, I know this doesn't help us, but Arkansas's defense isn't too well. But I don't think that'll be too much of a problem just because I think LSU is finally feeling himself for the first time. Now, if I was looking at it aside here, I do think this is going to be an LSU -3 play, but it seems a little too public for me. So just with it being a rivalry game, with it being a letdown spot for both teams, whether it's like a high to a low or a low to an even lower low for Arkansas, I just think this is a slow-paced game. I think the clock's going to run a lot, and I think anything in the 60s is too high. I'd much rather give you the under 64 I took earlier today, but at the time of recording this podcast, it's now at under 62. So we're still going to roll with it, even though it went through that key number of 63. So that's all I got for pick number 1.
All right. Nice. Very well educated there. Okay. Yeah, I like it. I'll go on to my game here. So, it's the 3rd straight week doing something with Ohio State. I feel like this week's game against Indiana, the spread is 40.5. I think I'm going to stay away from spreads with Ohio State. I think they've been like 0 for 4 in the last 4 spread games. But what I'm looking at with this one here, because there's not going to be 40-mile-an-hour winds, the game's going to be in the horseshoe. I'm going to go with the team total for Ohio State, and that's 48.5, and I'm taking over in that. It's no real, I wouldn't even say it's a surprise. It's no secret that Stroud had some doubt. He had doubters last week because he only put up 79 passing yards, 76 rushing yards. So this week, and that was against a team that was that Northwestern team is very bad. Their defense is very bad, and he underperformed. Granted, it is 40 mile-an-hour winds, but if you're a Heisman hopeful, and leading one of the best offenses in the country. I think you should be a little bit better than less than 100 yards passing in that game. And I also think that comes from coaching. They were calling deep passes instead of your short routes across the middle of the field, short bubble screens to your wide receivers, letting them make plays. I think this week, Day is going to want to kind of bolster up Stroud's stats, try to get him back into this, and they're going to try to put on points because right now Michigan's creeping up on them in those standings. I know 2 and 3 really don't mean anything, but being a 2 seed, kind of separating yourself from that 3 seed when they are in your conference could be big when you face them at the end of the year. You know, it kind of, if you end up losing that game, then there's still a shot if you get to play somewhere else. Yeah. So I think this game is going to be Ohio State coming out first half just trying to absolutely destroy this game, blow it open quick, try to score as many points as quickly as we can. The defense is actually stepping up big time this year, but with Indiana, Indiana's maybe a little worse. They're better than Northwestern, but I'd say a little worse, statistically speaking, with moving the ball and being able to pass the ball. Ohio State's weakness on defense would be their secondary, I would say. And Indiana just doesn't have the quarterback or the receiving core to attack that defensive backfield. Again, the spread's at 40.5. I don't think Day will keep his starters on the field long enough to get 40.5. If he does, right, let's say they do go up, then he puts in the second string, I can still see Indiana scoring a touchdown or two and kind of flirting with that line. But I can see them scoring easily 40-something in the first half of this game. Mm-hmm. So if they come out, score 40, 35 or more in the first half, then you only need a couple touchdowns there. I think the team total over is big. I think the wide receivers for Ohio State have a big week this week. And with Indiana's defense being 116th against the pass this year, I think, nicer conditions down in Columbus for this game. Stroud has a day. Marvin Harrison Jr. has a day. Cade Stover has a day. And they just, they're up near 50, maybe 60 points against Indiana. So
Smith and Jigma ever coming back?
I don't think he will.
Okay.
He tried to come back.
What a waste of a Heisman ticket that was for me.
Yeah, and I think right now he's thinking more or less along the lines of his professional career. So, yeah. But again, Smith and Jigba, you lose Smith and Jigba, and you still have 3 5-star recruits at wide receiver. So, team total, Ohio State over 48.5. That's the play in this one.
I like that one. Switching it up a little bit.
Yep. Got to change the juju a bit.
Yeah.
All right. What's your next one?
I'm also going to go to a Big Ten game. And this one's going to be a dogfight of 2 4 and 5 teams. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights and Michigan State here. First thing I saw when I started handicapping this game is the stretch of games that Michigan State has been on. They have gone 2 over 2 over the last 4 games, but man, they've taken an ass beating in the physicality of defense they've played. 4 games ago, they played Ohio State, lost. Pretty good defense over Ohio State. Then went on to Wisconsin, won in double overtime. Wisconsin's got a great defense. 2 weeks ago, played Michigan, pretty solid defense. And then last week, played Illinois, pretty solid defense. So now they're playing Rutgers, who defensively is ranked 18th in the country in total yards allowed. Pretty solid defense and pretty slow pace of play from this Rutgers team in general. So this Michigan State's offense is going to be on the field a lot, but I don't know if they're going to score too much. And I do think Rutgers is going to be able to slow them down and keep this game close. For me, the spread is, here's another reason why we wanted to record earlier in the day, is that earlier today this line was Rutgers plus 10. It's down to Rutgers plus 9.5. That is a pretty significant half point, but I'm still rocking with Rutgers plus 9.5. This is a game with both that matters immensely for both teams. When it comes to bowl eligibility, the 3 games left on Rutgers' schedule are Michigan State, Penn State, and Maryland. Rutgers has a chance of beating Michigan State and Maryland, probably not Penn State. So with 4 wins, and you got to get to 6 for bowl eligibility, they know how significant and how much they need to beat Michigan State here. And same thing goes for Michigan State. Their last 3 games are Rutgers, Indiana, and Penn State. So Michigan State should be able to hold Indiana. I'm assuming they'll lose to Penn State, so they know that they got to beat Rutgers here. So in a game like this, I just think the spread is too big, especially if you can find it at plus 10 anywhere still. Greg Schiano and that defense run a very tight ship. Rutgers defense is only allowing wait, hold up, just left my screen here. Rutgers defense is only allowing 310 yards per game this year. I mean, that's against a pretty healthy Big Ten schedule with a lot of talent. They've already played Ohio State and Michigan, so both those games are accounted for in those average yard totals. And on top of that, they hung pretty well with Michigan last week for like 2.5, 3 quarters.
Yep.
So, I mean, this Rutgers defense is definitely a bend, don't break style. But like I said, I don't have too much faith in Peyton Thorne leading this Michigan State offense to be able to like pull out to any significant lead against Rutgers. So I expect a slow-paced game, and I expect Rutgers to be able to cover here in a dogfight for bowl eligibility.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Rutgers is, man. They're one of those teams in the Big Ten that every week
they hung with Ohio State for a little bit before that game got blown up.
And they made they made the game against Michigan kind of, you sweated that one out a little bit too. But
yeah.
No, they're always, and they always have trick plays, and I feel like against Michigan State right now, who's just like
undisciplined. They might be able to get a couple trick plays off. Now, Michigan State did beat Illinois last week, which was a great win for the program. So, additionally, this might be a little bit of a letdown spot. They might be feeling themselves. Had a nice little bounce back after all the criticism with the thuggery after the Michigan game. So, just another point to support my position on Rutgers.
Yep, that's a good point. All right, nice. Okay, my second game, we are going with TCU Texas. Now, this is the College Game Day game. College Game Day will be in Texas, and it's also a 7:30 kickoff, so it's prime time on ABC. TCU 9-0, Texas 6-3. TCU is that 4th team in the college football playoff right now, and in this game they are 7-point underdogs. So Texas favored by 7. The over/under 64.5. I feel like this is kind of a slap in the face. I'm not saying TCU comes out and destroys them. I'm not even saying TCU wins the game, but I don't think they lose by more than 7 points here. I think this game stays close, but the big things for me are TCU's scoring 43 points a game, so you could kind of look towards the over there. But Max Duggan has been phenomenal this year. They're the 3rd-ranked scoring team in the country. He's thrown for 2,400 yards, 24 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. Now he gets to go up against a Texas team that is 101st in passing yards. They're giving up just over 250 yards through the air each game. So Max Duggan, he's 2-1 against Texas. This is his 4th start against Texas. He's 4th in pass efficiency, and he's completed in the stretch where he's won 4 straight against ranked opponents. So Texas is ranked 16th. In those 4 straight ranked opponent wins, he's 65% completion rate. And Texas allows quarterbacks to complete about 65%. So I think he has a good game. And he's also 69.4% in 3 starts against Texas. So he's going to be accurate. Now we turn to the running backs, and Big 12 has 2 1,000-yard rushers. Both are in this game. TCU's Kendre Miller, just over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's averaging 6.6 a carry. And he's going up against Bijan Robinson, who is probably one of the better running backs, one of the veteran running backs in college football. He's 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's averaging 5.9 a carry. So I think the run game will kind of even itself out there. You also have Quinn Ewers on the other side. He's national game. He's starting to get better, but for this one, I just think TCU comes out and they throw the ball well against Texas. Texas may win this game, right? I'm not saying that TCU is going to blow them out, but I can see TCU keeping it close and pulling out a victory late. TCU is also +7 on the turnover margin, so any game that's close like this, turnovers are going to be the big factor. TCU +7, Texas +1, but Texas is going up against a quarterback who does not turn the ball over. I think TCU has a great day. I think they come out, they showcase themselves. They say, hey, we're number 4. We should be number 4. We're not going to let anyone take that from us. And they keep themselves right there. But TCU +7, give me 7 points. I'll take that all day with this TCU and Max Duggan.
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe sit on and wait for 7.5, something a little higher. Just because I think the public might come in on Texas later this week. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening, maybe be on the lookout for that. But it's tough. It's a tough handicap because Gary Patterson, longtime legendary head coach at TCU, is an analyst for Texas, so he knows this roster pretty well. But TCU's been due for a loss, but they've held on pretty strong against quality Big 12 opponents, and I'd like to see them make it to the playoff. So I mean, I'm rooting for you here.
And they're also 3-0 in one-score games, and they came back from 11 points down to beat Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
and Kansas State.
They're down at halftime and always find a way to win.
They always come back.
The good thing about a TCU bet is you're never out of it.
Right. So again, this isn't going to be a blowout. It's going to be close.
Yeah.
I feel good about that one. So.
But, all right. For my final pick, I'm going to go to an American League what is AAC, American Athletic Conference game here. Yep. And let me just start this off by saying Houston and SMU had the all-time winning high-scoring game last week. And then for Vegas to come back with the line for the total that's only at 56.5, I don't know if they're trying to set me up for failure, but I don't know. Houston is 8-1 to the over in their games this year. So if I see a Houston game with an over that's less than 60 or a total that's less than 60, I'm going to take that 10 times out of 10. We're going to go Houston Temple over 56.5. Everybody saw the game last week. Houston's defense couldn't stop they couldn't stop. I'm trying to think of something clever to say, but they just couldn't stop Tanner Mordecai and SMU whatsoever.
Nothing.
The SMU did whatever they wanted that whole game. But the good thing is Houston's offense kind of did too. Clayton Tune, their quarterback, he's had a pretty solid year. He's got 2,700 yards through the air, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And so here, I know Houston's liable to go for 50-plus in a game themselves, especially against a terrible team that's Temple. When Temple, the last game they played against an offense similar to Houston's, which would be October 13th when they played UCF. Two similar offenses, UCF and Houston run a very similar scheme. UCF put up 70 points on them. So I am saying that if Houston doesn't have this huge offense, at least, doesn't have this huge hangover from running all up and down the field last week against SMU, I think they're liable to maybe get us really close to this total themselves. So all I really need is Temple to get me like a touchdown or two, and we can get over here. And I feel pretty confident with that. Great quarterback Kurt Warner. His son, EJ, is the starting quarterback for Temple this year. And last week he went off. He finally had like a come-to-Jesus moment where he had his best game of the season. He threw for 344 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if we look at his stats throughout the year, he's actually had pretty solid games, even though his defense has let him down and they have a terrible record. He does have the capability to put points up on the board, and if not, it doesn't matter if he throws us some picks, because short field turnovers could help Houston score quick, and we can get over this 56.5 pretty quickly. Before last week, when they had their blowout win, the 3 games previous, he threw for 43. He had 43 pass attempts, 48 pass attempts, and then 48 again. Right, 43, 48, 48 is what he went. So, I mean, this Temple team is not scared to throw the ball. So I think they're going to be able to get chunk plays, put at least enough points up on the board for us to get us over this total. And with Houston already being 8-1 to the over this year, I just feel pretty confident about this one. So
Yeah.
Houston Temple over 56.5.
Yeah, I'd feel confident with a over with Houston or SMU. I was watching the that USC game late, and they were coming through with showing the highlights of that game. I'm like, geez,
Yeah.
that's a betting dream. You had the over. You're just sitting pretty in that one. But no, that's fun to watch, man, and I like it. I like Houston's offense. All right, final game, Washington against Oregon. Right now the spread is 13.5 in favor of the Ducks, and the total is at 64.5. So I bring up the total because we have 2 teams here. Oregon scored 41 or more points in 8 straight games, and they are, where is it? Give me a second. Let me scroll up and find it. All right, I'm not going to be able to find it, but they're scoring like 43. There it is, 43 points a game, so they're tied for third in the nation. Now they're playing a team, Washington, who Michael Penix Jr. transfers over from Indiana. He's having a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
Washington throws the ball very well. He has over 3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. He's got a 152.8 passer rating. Washington leads the country in first downs, bypass. They convert first downs with the pass about 18 times a game. So Washington can throw the ball. They're a very good offensive-minded passing team. However, their running game, not so much. So that makes them a one-sided team. This says that they'll put up points, okay? So that's why I bring up the over, because I think they can get 24 points in this game. I think Oregon keeps scoring their 40-something points, so the over's in play. But for me, I'm going to take the Ducks minus 13.5 because Bo Nix is – I didn't like Bo Nix when he was with Auburn.
No.
He has won the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week three weeks in a row now. And his offense, their offense, is having a lot of fun. So last week he had where was it? He had 2 touchdowns and then 3 other non-passing touchdowns. Oregon also put in what they call gadget plays. They didn't call them trick plays because they practice them so much and they run them to perfection in practice, so you can't really call it a trick.
Yeah.
But they had halfback pass, a pass to a lineman, things like that. So Dan Lanning, head coach for Oregon, says, when a team's complete offensively and then you throw in these little plays right before a week when you're playing another opponent, it just adds another wrinkle into your offense. It's very tough to prepare for that. He says stats are for losers. He doesn't care about that. He just wants to win. I think their offense is having a lot of fun here. And Oregon is giving up 26 points a game. That could be kind of, tying into my over. But I'm sticking with the spread here. Like I said, Oregon, 41 or more points in 8 straight games. It's just tough to bet against their offense. They've allowed 1 sack this season. And they've also been able to run the ball whenever they want, 5.8 yards per carry. Washington's run defense has done fantastic, but Oregon's offensive line is too big for Washington. Huskies are going to be able to pass the ball, but again, they're one-dimensional. So Washington's going to they're going to struggle to keep up the pace. Oregon's 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 games, 4-1 against the spread in its previous 5 games in November, and then Washington 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games, 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 on the road, and 2-14-1 against the spread in the last 17 meetings with Oregon. I think Bo Nix has another fantastic day, and I think that because Washington can't run the ball, I think Oregon comes out, they win this easily. It's 2 touchdowns. So
Yeah,
I
Kalen
like
DeBoer and Washington's kind of fell off ever since they had a little bit of a hype train earlier this year, and since then they've been underperforming. So I like where you're going with that.
Yep. All right. That's it. Yeah, you don't have anything else, do you?
No, we're actually running out of time this season.
Yes, we are.
Damn, we're already at week 11. We got week 12 next week. Week 13 is rivalry week. Then after that, we got the conference championships. So our volume betting on Saturday is going to go down significantly towards the end of this month. And week 15, Army Navy, which we're not doing an episode for. Just take the under.
We'll tell you that right now.
So, man, I love this time of the year. It just sucks how fast it goes by.
Yep.
But, yeah, let's cash these tickets this week.
Yeah, we're building the momentum, building it up until conference championships, and then, we have our big bowl season, and right now we're feeling good, man. The mojo's high.
Yes, tough week, but
if we come out of this week positive, I say then we're in very, very good shape.
I feel we're good.
Moving forward. All right. Summarize your picks real quick for me.
All right. Big Country Week 11 college football slate for the pod is LSU Arkansas under 62. It is Houston Temple over 56.5, and it is Rutgers plus 9.5.
And then my card, I got Ohio State team total over 48.5. TCU plus 7 against Texas, and then Oregon minus 13.5 against Washington, and also look out for the over in that game. And that's it. Next week is our 50th episode too, so
hopefully we can get good through this week. I'll maybe have a couple bonus picks next week.
We got to do something.
See what the board tells us.
Got to do something, but in order for that to happen, we need people to like, subscribe, comment, share,
rate, review,
all that stuff.
Share most of all.
Why don't you go ahead and throw out the socials for everyone while I pull up our random college football player?
Find Dan at dpos13. Find me at Big Country Bets, and find the pod at CFP_pod.
Yep, and we're wherever you can listen to podcasts, we are there. And this week, we're talking about Dan McGuire. He was a 6'8" quarterback, played 2 years at Iowa, transferred to San Diego State, put up fantastic numbers. Seahawks drafted him 16th overall in 91, ahead of Brett Favre. Thought, big guy, college, he's going to have a great year. Nah, he struggled and was out after 2 years. So, Dan McGuire.
But he didn't steal any welfare money, did
he? Did not steal any, so he's got one up on Favre.
Okay, just wondering.
Dan McGuire. All right, you got anything else?
I'm good.
Cool, man. All right. That's Big Country. I'm Dan. We will see you next week for episode 50.